I am so excited to welcome you to Season 3 of Angel. This is the podcast where I, Jason Calacanis, an angel investor here in the Silicon Valley who's invested in over 200 startups, interview my peers and the people who've done it longer than me to ask them the questions you, as a founder or an investor, want to know. How do you find deals? How do you determine who to write that check to? How do you determine if you want to go pro rata, if you should do follow-on financing? What makes a venture capitalist, an early stage investor, a seed investor, an angel, what makes them tick? How do they make their decisions? We've got an amazing season for you. 10 amazing investors. Some of the investors who are on this season: Matt Acco, Charles Hudson, Chris Redlitz, Christine Tsai, Dave Morin, Ryan Hoover, Mitch Kapoor, Mamoon from Kleiner, Ben Ling. It's going to be an amazing season. We're all going to learn a ton, and you can get it all at angelpodcast.com.
Angel is brought to you by LinkedIn. You already know LinkedIn as the world's largest professional network. It's also a better way to find great talent. Go to linkedin.com/angel and get a $50 credit towards your first job post. Terms and conditions apply. And Embroker. The Embroker Startup Program helps secure the most important lines of insurance at a lower cost and with less hassle. For guaranteed 10% off on premiums and up to 20% depending on quote, go to embroker.com/angel.
Hey everybody. Welcome back to the podcast Angel. I'm Jason Calacanis, an angel investor here in the Silicon Valley. I've made over 200 investments in startup companies. And in this podcast, which is now in its third season, welcome back, we are going to interview another 10 amazing early stage investors. Angel investing is the greatest job you could ever have. You get to sit with the most intelligent people who are the most motivated to change the world. And you get to write them a small check, maybe as small as $2,000 or $3,000 if you're going through a syndicate, or $10,000 or $25,000 if you're investing directly. And then you place 10, 20, 30 of those bets over a couple of years. And if you're like me and you're investing in the right companies, you may hit a unicorn, a company worth $1 billion, every 20, 30, 40, or 50 times you make an investment. What happens when you hit a unicorn? You might return 50 times, 100 times your money. In my case, I've hit 7 of those unicorns in 200 investments. Investing is hard. You should only invest a portion of your net worth that you're willing to lose. This show is filled with great advice, but the worst thing you can do is put all of your capital into one company. You want to be diversified. You want to invest. If I was going to, give my mom and dad advice, or my brothers, I might say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% of your net worth if you're doing this and you're learning. Maybe if you're super aggressive and you got a lot of money, maybe if you're doing it full-time or half-time, maybe 10%, even 20% of your net worth. But be careful. Only invest what you can afford to lose and have a 10-year outlook. And the benefits of angel investing are so great. You're going to learn a lot. Every company is like getting an MBA. So if you make 10 investments, it's like getting 10 MBAs. And in fact, if my daughters came to me and said, "Dad, I don't want to go to college. I don't want to spend $200,000 on tuition. I'd rather spend $200,000 angel investing over the next 5 years." You know what I would say? Let's go. Great decision. On the podcast, we like to feature people who are extraordinarily successful. If you're an angel investor and you've done a dozen deals, or you're a new fund manager and you want to be on this podcast, that's awesome. Thanks for emailing. Email us back and call us back in 5 years when you've hit as many unicorns and you've invested in as many companies as my guest today. Christine Tsai is with us, managing partner at 500 Startups. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
How long have you been angel investing and doing early stage investing? Obviously, 500 Startups is an accelerator/incubator. I don't know which word you prefer.
Mm-hmm. For probably venture firm, but venture firm with an accelerator. Yeah.
Venture firm with an accelerator. Why accelerator, not incubator?
Well, I think people probably,
yeah.
People kind of use the term interchangeably, right?
Sure.
When I think of the term incubator, I think of ideas that are homegrown in-house and potentially eventually like spun out. Whereas an accelerator, you're ideally accelerating companies that come into the program. So, but I think a lot of people tend to use them interchangeably. But
When did you get your start in investing?
It was really with the start of 500, actually. I mean, I was fascinated with venture for a long time. Prior to 500, my entire career was in tech in Silicon Valley. I actually grew up in Silicon Valley, so I definitely was coming at it.
Literally grew up here.
Yeah, I was not born here, but it would be much easier if I could just say I was born and raised in Silicon Valley. But I, for the vast majority of my life, was raised here in the Bay Area. But,
whereabouts?
In the East Bay
Great.
in Fremont, actually. And I grew up
where
with
the Tesla factory is now.
Yes, that was the NUMMI plant for many years, and I don't know what was there before that existed, but yeah, now it's a Tesla plant.
Yeah, it's changed a lot here.
Yes.
And what did you do before venture? Before the founding of 500?
I was thinking about my just my professional career. I've been in Silicon Valley for now, working for like almost 20 years, and it's really been primarily two places. So it's not like a lot of like the vast majority of people who are probably at startups, tech. They a couple years here. Prior to 500, which is now 9 years old at this point,
Wow.
I was at Google for quite a long time. Was there for about 7+ years. So joined in 2003 and then left in 2010 to start 500. And then prior to that, nothing too eventful. It was the .com bust. So finding a job out of school was pretty tough. But, it was definitely a very transformative period of time for Google, of course.
Yeah. Was Google public at that time? No, it was pre-IPO.
Yeah. So I joined in 2003. So that was about a year before the IPO. And then they went IPO in 2004. And it was still a pretty quiet time coming off of the bust. And
yeah,
Google was one of the few places, of course, that was thriving and hiring. And it's funny thinking back now, it was definitely a time where, tech wasn't vilified the way it is nowadays. And I remember going, walk down the street with a Google t-shirt, and the types of reactions you would get from all kinds of people. It would be like, Google is this darling company, could do no wrong. Now, of course, when people think of Google, Facebook, and all those tech giants, it's not no warm, fuzzy feelings, but it was just definitely a really transformative time certainly for Google, Silicon Valley. For me, it was a really special time. And as you probably know, within venture and entrepreneurs, there's a lot of just really amazing people that were at Google during that time that I had the good fortune to work with or know.
Well, you know what? You either die the hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Yeah.
It's Batman. I don't know if you remember that quote.
Yeah.
I probably butchered it, but it always stuck with me. We'll get back to that. I'm going to put a pin in the vilification of Silicon Valley and how we got here. What did you do at Google? How did you get the job? Where'd you go to school? What was your degree in?
So I literally, like, having been here almost my whole life, I also went to school here, went to Berkeley. So go Bears, have to always include that in there. So I was there, did cognitive science, which was kind of a nice interdisciplinary major with psych and linguistics, philosophy. There was a computer science angle to it, which was the hardest part for me. It's funny thinking about, especially when you think about this whole kind of dialogue around, women and tech, and people have different perspectives on why there's, not enough. Or I had no excuse as a daughter of an engineer. My mom was an engineer at Intel for like 30 years, and so we always had computers in our house. She was constantly, strongly encouraging me to learn programming, and definitely a lot of strong encouragement again, getting accepted into Berkeley to do computer science, which is, I don't know if you know, is a really challenging major. You have to not only apply to get into Berkeley, you then have to apply to get into that major. And it's very theoretical. I just wanted to learn how to build websites, which you don't learn at Cal.
No.
So I did not do computer science. I think I dropped out of a couple of the undergraduate recs, so there was no way I didn't even try to get in. So, but I did that. I was still very fascinated by tech.
Yeah.
So when I graduated, of course, I was quite interested in working at a .com and a tech company, which was hard to come by. I just vividly remember one summer, I think as a junior, there was a lot of hiring. I think I got rejected from all of the startup internships I interviewed at. And then the following year, which is very different. It was just like nobody was hiring.
This is 2003, this is 2002.
2002 when I graduated. So it was
which is fascinating. That's when the .com bubble burst.
Yes.
And a bunch of us young kids were running around starting blogging.
I remember you as one of our top AdSense publishers. So like your
question.
I
was the number one AdSense publisher for Engadget. Actually,
yes.
Kim, what was Kim's name?
Kim Scott.
Kim Scott.
AdSense, yeah.
Yeah, but what was her name before that?
Kim Malone.
Kim Malone.
Yeah.
She's now Kim Scott, and she actually wrote the book Radical Candor.
Yes.
And
yes.
have we had her on the podcast? I don't think so, Jackie. I mean, what do we Jackie? Take a note. Kim, Radical Candor. But I remember like it was yesterday, in the first post IPO, they asked us, would we be featured as the independent publisher alongside the New York Times in the first post-public quarterly report? And so they published Engadget and New York Times, and they had quotes from me and Martin Eselholtz. But we were like, Kim was my rabbi at Google, and she was like, do you know, I said, what percentage am I getting? She said, we don't disclose that. I was like, 70%? And she just like gave me like a little thumbs up.
Oh, in terms of the rev share?
Yeah. Because you guys didn't disclose the rev share.
Yeah, we're pretty secretive.
And at one point, I said, you're giving me 100%, aren't you? Just to make me happy. And she gave me a little wink and put a thumbs up. And I realized that Google was paying me above what they were making to have me go out and tell everybody it was okay to put Google ads on your site. Because that was a big controversy for blogs, to even commercialize blogging.
Yeah.
All right, when we get back from this quick break, I want to hear the story of the founding of 500 Startups. And obviously, we'll address the elephant in the room, the leaving of your co-founder, Dave, when we get back on Angel, the podcast. Every week, 22 million professionals on LinkedIn are looking at jobs. That's because LinkedIn has the most powerful job hiring function ever created. And I want to give you $50 towards your first hire by going to linkedin.com/angel, the name of this podcast. LinkedIn.com/angel gets you $50 towards your first job posting. Of course, terms and conditions apply. We use LinkedIn Jobs. We hired Sir Charles and our marketing manager in Toronto, both from finding them as passive job seekers on LinkedIn. That's right. Our marketing manager in our Toronto office was on LinkedIn, and she saw an ad for our position, and she said, wow, that's an interesting position. That would be an upgrade from what I'm doing right now. She was not looking for a job. She was what they call a passive job searcher. She didn't even know she was looking for a job, but when the right one was presented, aha, we got her. And it's been great ever since. Those are the people you want. The people who are currently unemployed, maybe they're unemployed for a reason. Maybe they're just getting back into the workforce. I don't mean to be cruel to anybody here. But the people who have great jobs, they may want an exceptional job. They may have a good job and they want a great one. They may have an okay one and they want a great one. You're going to at least get in front of those people, and you can manage your candidate pipeline through the software there. So it's really easy to keep track of everybody. And it really is about LinkedIn's massive reach. They have 70% of the US workforce is on LinkedIn. Who's not on LinkedIn? That's like not having a phone number. How do you expect to operate in the world if you're not on LinkedIn? That's just literally impossible. So go to linkedin.com/angel and solve your hiring problems today. I did. And I would never, and I'm being dead serious here, I would literally never try to hire for a position without putting it on LinkedIn first. Okay, linkedin.com/angel, get the 50. Let's get back to this amazing episode. Okay, welcome back to Angel the Podcast. I'm Jason Calacanis. And if you're watching the video, you see 3 copies of my book. The English version, the Japanese version, and the Chinese version. For those of you in Estonia, Italy, Spain, or other Spanish-speaking countries, Germany, etc., stay tuned. The book is traveling the world, and if you want to read the book, this podcast is the complement to the book, where I explain a lot of my theories on early-stage investing, and you can go to angelthebook.com. This podcast can be found at angelpodcast.com or in whatever podcast player you prefer. My guest today, Christine Tsai, that's Tsai, and you can follow her on the Twitter, Christine_Tsai. She's the managing partner of 500 Startups. Did you co-found 500? Tell me about the origins of 500 Startups.
So I was at Google, as we talked earlier, for a long time, and probably, midway in, I just started to become, I don't even know how, really interested in kind of VC. And it was a pretty opaque industry back then. One of the few that really actively blogged about it at the time was, there was just a handful, but Fred Wilson was probably one of the ones that I remembered. And I didn't even think about the concept and the probably the concept didn't exist back then of like unicorns and like returning the fund and like all that stuff that was more related to the actual fiduciary part of it. To me, VC was an opportunity to work with companies really early. I'd done that and had been doing that more on the Google side. Worked a lot with the publisher side as well as developer tools, and by and large, a lot of those users were startups or entrepreneurs. And so to me, that was pretty fascinating. Definitely was looking at it much more from the product tech angle versus, again, the investment side of it. So entrepreneurs. And so to me, that was to try to weave it into my day job at Google. I was on the product marketing side, whether it was like inviting Fred to come talk at one of our speaker series, asking the companies that we were working with for connections to their advisors or angels, just more because I was fascinated. And that's actually how I met my co-founder, Dave, when I was at YouTube. There was a company that I was working with on the YouTube APIs. I think back when the YouTube APIs were pretty limited in what they could do. Nowadays, I think it's a different story. Asked for an intro, and he was probably one of many different VC connections that I had made just on my own. There were certainly a lot of ex-Googlers that had gone on into venture. 2010, I decided, I think I'm ready to leave Google. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I knew that venture was interesting, but it's not the type of job you go apply for. And I had actually gone to a couple firms, through the kind of interview process and got rejected from them all. And a lot of the feedback that I got was, venture is kind of an industry where, you either start right out of college or you join after having been a successful entrepreneur. There's a little bit of the feedback of, well, if you're a woman in venture, you kind of have to be like really, really aggressive, with a kind of indirect feedback that you're kind of like not aggressive enough, or you're kind of too quiet. So to me, it was just sort of like this pie in the sky, maybe someday, but I don't know. But
in 2010, maybe 1% of partners at firms were female.
Probably, yeah.
Kleiner being the one place that had a large number of all-stars at that time.
Yeah.
Paradoxically. Given what happened with Ellen Pao. Leadership, I want you to answer firm that embraced it. Mm-hmm. So Dave asked you to be his co-founder, or he had started and then pulled you in. What was the history of that? When did he bring you into all this?
So I believe he had actually started, this probably precedes even 2010. I think it was maybe 2008. From my memory's a little fuzzy, but obviously 2008 was a great time to start a fund. But
the financial crisis.
So
everybody
I think that,
go home. Exactly.
So I think that kind of, pause. And then 2010, he was starting to try to raise the first fund. It was still had no name, nothing. And, when I was going through my journey to try to figure out what am I going to do if I leave Google, I'd already made up my mind I want to leave. He was one of a few, coffee conversations I had, and the timing just seemed to be pretty good. Like I remember that meeting. He was very cool, and I was telling him, I've made up my mind. I want to leave Google. I know I'm interested in venture. I'm also kind of exploring other opportunities. What advice did you have? I didn't know anything about him raising this fund. And, we would stay in contact after we had initially got introduced, because I would help him with like Google stuff and this and that. But it wasn't like it's not like we were, the prototypical like best friends, knew each other for our entire lives. But, when I told that to him, he was kind of like, you caught me at a good time. I'm working on this fund. And in hindsight, when I think back, I think, wow, I basically left my job at Google, which was, obviously it was great. It was fine. It was great. Yeah. To go start something new with some guy who I know okay, but it's not like the fund was even off the ground yet. So in hindsight, I think, wow, that was pretty bold. Stupid or bold.
I would say bold.
But bold. Okay. Yeah. My parents were very
worried. On my arms. Hey, when Korean.
Yeah, Korean Asian parents are. They always want what's secure and safe. But
and you're not a doctor, so you broke their hearts.
Interestingly, I don't. Engineer is probably the one. I was going to say like probably they're probably not like most stereotypical parents. They never really push the doctor route. But yeah.
So the word I heard was you were the bedrock, the foundation of 500. You actually did all the work. You did the foundational stuff and got stuff done. Dave was obviously out there being the hype man, was a bit of a maniac, maybe. Drank a little bit too much in my experience with him. Mm-hmm. And obviously, to his own admission, was inappropriate many times. I know you don't want to I don't think we need to rehash the whole thing here because it's been rehashed. But you wound up taking over 500 after his departure. How did you deal with the revelation of his indiscretions, him being your partner, and how did 500 Startups survive all this? Because based on what I heard, 500 Startups was going to shut down. And it was like teetering on, this is the end. And so how did you save it? Or how is it saved? And what can we expect going forward?
Well, I think when when I look at 500 now, and even back then when, this is like a year and a half ago at this point, I think it's important to remember that 500 is always, and maybe it wasn't so visible in the early days, but it was always really about a very strong mission. And the mission that we had was that founders exist all around the world. They need help creating great companies. And not only do we care about seeking out and discovering these amazing founders in, whether it's in Mexico City or India or Malaysia or Los Angeles, that talent exists everywhere. And not only does that talent exist everywhere, there are many places outside of Silicon Valley that will become not like Silicon Valley, but they also will grow and flourish into what everyone wants to be Silicon Valley for. So a lot of people look at Silicon Valley and think, oh, we have to have that mindset. But, over the past 9 years, as 500 is so global, when we look at these different markets, of course, they're not exactly like Silicon Valley. In fact, if we had the mindset that they need to be exactly like the Valley, then it's a bit of a, doesn't do justice to what's special about that market, that culture, and all the cultural nuances. So to me, that was really what was most important, that 500 was really this brand that has now today helped more than 2,000 companies around the world. We're talking about...
When you say helped, invested in.
Yeah, invested in. Actually, put money into these companies.
Where does that put you versus, say, sorry to interrupt, but where does that put you versus Y Combinator and Techstars in terms of the number of companies invested in? Do you know?
In terms of the number, I don't know what their numbers are. I know for 500, it's about 2,200 companies to date since 2010 that we've actually invested in. And the portfolio right now is like just shy of 50% outside the US.
Amazing.
And I think even from the early days, I actually remember it as kind of a knock against us in some cases where people would comment, 500 has a lot of international companies, as if it was sort of second tier.
Yeah.
But now, when you look at, even everyone loves the term unicorn, but when you look at that, the unicorn companies, since that's what everyone kind of salivates over, now I think it's getting close to 50% of them are from outside the US, and that number is just going to increase. And even for our own portfolio, we have about 10 that we publicly disclose, or others that are unicorn status, but we don't, they're not public about it. Even for those, we're kind of trending that as well. We have about half of those are outside the US. So it's pretty, for us, in this kind of next phase of 500, we already have been known to invest globally, and that's what a lot of people know us for. We really want to lean in there in terms of our global approach, kind of capturing all that value we've built over the past 9 years. And I guess, going to your earlier question about, Dave and everything, it's not really something that is, it's I don't really talk about it too much, just because it was definitely to say it was a painful time in my life is kind of an understatement. So, but
it has to be the worst part of your life, I think.
Yeah.
Certainly professionally to date.
Professionally, I will actually, even personally. I mean, you say professionally, but this is, it was just, I guess what I'll leave it with was a very painful period. So I don't really
Why didn't you quit?
Enjoy talking about it. But
I assumed you would quit. You're in demand. You have tremendous experience. You could. It's much different to 2018, 2017, 2018, 2019. It's a much different market than when you went out to look for a venture job in 2010. I know for a fact that the top 10 venture firms, half of them would hire you in a heartbeat. Why did you stay and deal with trying to save 500 rather than doing what I might have done, which is said, you know what? I'm going to go hang out at Sequoia or Benchmark or Chamath's or Craft Ventures, or pick a firm and drink Blue Bottle chicory iced coffee for $6 a pop and not deal with this nonsense. Why didn't you quit, Christine? What was it?
I think the mission of 500 is just way too important to let it die. And I think, Dave leaving is obviously huge. I don't think I could have done that. Not to say there weren't times where I just felt like I don't know what I'm going to do. This is I can't handle this. But ultimately I felt like there's so many people, our team, our investors, our founders, that I just felt like I had this very strong sense of loyalty that someone had to be here. And even to this day, I think it's been about 1.5 years, 2 years. I'm actually really excited about what the future holds for us going forward, this year and even next 5-10 years. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. And in fact, it's going to be far from easy, but I feel like, I think back to what the ethos and the mission is of 500 and just everything that I think this actually becomes more evident every time I have a conversation with a founder. When I talk with a founder from the past accelerator batch or that we invested in, maybe they were from a market where entrepreneurship is shunned or who knows, but those are always the best reminders where they think, 500 was there for me. They were the first one that believed in my company. It's this mission is just too important for no one else is going to do this but us. And I felt like it was just that plus that sense of duty. I just it didn't cross my mind saying, peace out guys, I'm leaving. But just because it just,
I think it's admirable. I mean, it literally, if it was me, I would have just been like, this
go
is
enjoy
nonsense.
your blue bottle.
I didn't create this nonsense. Bring on the chicory blue bottle. I'm out. I'm going to take 4 weeks off over Christmas and 4 weeks off over the summer and just join a big venture firm. Paradoxically, the firm was what percentage female led?
So I guess
if you look at the top positions, I always was amazed by the amount of female leadership at your firm.
Yeah.
Half? A third?
Well, the investment partners, I believe it's actually, if you include all of our, my folks like myself, our partner Beji, who's also part of the leadership, and a lot of our general partners who run the various funds around 500, I believe it's about a third.
Wow.
And then in terms of the leadership, I don't think it's half. It's close to half, maybe 40%.
And you index that against maybe low single digits in venture.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably 5-6x.
Yeah.
And 26% of the companies invested in by 500 startups are led by women.
Yeah.
How did you hit that high of a number? Did it take a specific amount of work or effort, or was it that female leadership drew in female leadership? I want you to answer that question when we get back from this quick break. One of the most important things for you to do for your startup is to have insurance. I don't know if you've been through this before, but I have. Errors and omission and cyber. That means if you get attacked and you get hacked, which everybody's unfortunately experiencing these days. And D&O. You've heard D&O. You've heard your investors throw it around. What does it mean? Directors and officers. That means the people on your board are covered in case the company gets sued because of a cyber attack or an HR issue, whatever it is. You need to have errors and omissions. You need to have D&O and you need to have cyber. Well, the Embroker Startup Program helps startups do this, and I went through it with the founder. It is so easy. You just take a couple of minutes, you answer a couple of very easy to do questions, and you will get your insurance priced out immediately. You'll have access to 50 of the top carriers and Embroker's proprietary insurance policies. It's white glove service from expert brokers who specialize in high growth companies like yours. So you can instantly build your custom insurance right now, and you'll save up to 20% if you go to embroker.com/angel. That's EM and then the word broker, EMBROKER.com/angel. Broker.com/angel. You need to get all this stuff dialed in. You need to do it right. Maybe you've been growing fast and you didn't get this set up because you're too busy. Well, it's time to take a pause and go to embroker.com/angel. Get that cyber insurance going. Hey, they even do things like cannabis and other insurance. Go to their website. You'll see it all at embroker.com/angel. Instantly buy that D&O, E&O cyber coverage in minutes, not weeks. That's the big thing here. Not only are you going to save money with Embroker, but you're going to save weeks and months of nonsense waiting for brokers to call you back and give you a quote, and they probably bait and switch you and charge you too much. So use embroker.com/angel. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Angel, the podcast. You can visit us at Angel Podcast. My guest today, Christine Tsai, the managing partner of 500 Startups. How many people work at 500 now across how many countries?
So our team represents, I think more than, I could be off on this even, but like more than 20 countries around the world. But our team is, worldwide is about, I believe 120 or so.
Wow. Yeah. How much under management and how much money are you responsible for having deployed?
We have a bit over 450 when you say committed capital, people under management, but that's across all of our funds.
Got it. Yeah. And over 2,000 investments.
Right.
10 known unicorns, Intercom, amazing. Did they go through the program or was that a direct investment?
Direct investment, but TalkDesk actually went through the program. And then Twilio, SendGrid, Credit Karma, Canva, and a couple of the international ones, like I mentioned. Actually, Canva
went through the program?
No, sorry. Canva was a direct investment.
Direct investment in Sydney?
Yes. And then Grab, Bukalapak, and then a couple others. It's always a game I play. Can I remember all 10? But since I'm on the spot with Jason.
GitLab, Grab, Canva,
exactly.
Revolution, TalkDesk, Karma.
Well, he's reading off of it.
Credit Karma, SendGrid, Twilio, Intercom. I got them all.
Yay. Perfect.
Just do what I do. Tattoo them on your arm.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I'm going to have sleeves of unicorn logos on my arms. Hey, when we left our hero, that's you, Christine, I was asking you about attracting female founders. Famously, some folks have said there's a bit of a pipeline problem. It's hard to find the female founders. Was that true 10 years ago, 5 years ago? Is it true today? Mm-hmm. How do you think about the number of female founders and finding those female founders?
It's definitely, I would say, a combination of things. So a lot of people will focus, have tunnel vision on a specific aspect of the problem and say it's a pipeline problem. None enough girls are interested in tech or whatever. Like, I don't believe that. Or they'll say that it's, needing to have women on the other side of the table to look at, female founders and attract them. And then, there's probably like 10 other reasons as to why it is the state that it is. But I believe that certainly like a big aspect of it is proactively reaching out to these founders. And this is not just limited to female founders. It's certainly underrepresented founders. Look at the intersection of the two, underrepresented minority female founders. And, and you're a very savvy investor. You've been doing this a long time. Great deals don't come to you. You have to go actively out and scouting them. And we think the same thing about the companies that we invest in. Sure, we do have an open application process for the accelerator. We certainly get a lot of inbound deals from our network, but it's really up to us to be going out and actively scouting these companies. And the more that we proactively go out and try to source deals from, network or pool of applicants that are female founders or, again, underrepresented minorities, then the more likely, of course, that our portfolio will be diverse. It's interesting, the question about, do you need to have women and, investors who are underrepresented minorities to help increase that? I think, yes, definitely. It's clear that when you do have that diverse perspective on the investment side of the table, that oftentimes does translate into a more diverse portfolio. Yeah. But I'd also like to think that, if it was like two white guys at a firm, they should be able to invest in diverse companies too. So it's kind of I always kind of feel torn with that question. It's like saying the only way you can really have empathy and want to understand a female founder or a business that targets maybe demographics you don't understand, that you have to be that person. And I'm like, well, that may be some of the reality, of course. I'd like to think also that people who aren't that could also see the value.
You would think.
You'd think, but I think
the statistics didn't show that.
Exactly.
And the statistics show the opposite, which is Aileen Lee or yourself or Cyan. Maybe people feel more comfortable. Yep. Certainly Arlen Hamilton from Backstage, which has had her own struggles, which we all have as investors. Raising funds is hard. Does 500 require that you have multiple co-founders like Y Combinator does? And do you require that there be developers as founders?
We've actually invested in a lot of companies that have single founders, so it's not a requirement. I think what we do like to see is that if you're a single founder, obviously it's quite a task. So for all the other responsibilities, do you have a team, or is it really just like literally one person? But we've had a number of companies where it's a single founder. There have been cases where it was a the founders were not technical. We're not huge. I mean, I know I'm personally not a huge fan of the non-technical founders, and then they outsource everything to, contractors that they've never met. So that's a little bit
Scary.
a little bit iffy for me, but
Yeah.
if they at least have technical talent that's in-house, it doesn't have to be a CTO, it could be an engineer or something, then that helps address that with hopefully the intention that down the line they do recruit a CTO or, lead engineer.
Do you think Y Combinator having that rule, you have to be developers, basically, you have to have multiple ones, do you think that resulted in a lack of diversity? Because if there are less female founders or people of color who are developer founders versus sales founders, product founders, you're a product person, I'm a product person, designer founders like the Airbnb who actually did go to there. Do you think that actually reduces diversity? I kind of think that was like the leak in the game over there.
Yeah, I think it's, it's hard to say, but I think definitely when you're thinking about how do you access more diverse companies and deal flow, you have to think about like, how do you look at what are your criteria for like what makes for a good company? So if it is like, let's say you have this mindset that has to be technical founders or that they have to have gone to a certain school, part of the challenge is questioning like, really, like, are you sure? Like, is that really the case? Because, we've had a number of companies that we've invested in that have gone on to be successful that didn't fit that prototype of what a founder should look like. So I know that it's something, whether it's the requirement is what school you went to or that they have to be hackers or technical. I mean, how that impacted YC or others. I mean, I'm not one to comment, of course, but I do know that when you try to expand your mind of like what could be possible for being a great founder, then of course that's going to open up the opportunities, and you'll start to see companies that you might not have previously considered that are equally like great, or even going beyond the founders, the demographics that those customers the demographics that the founders are targeting, and it could be an audience that you really have no insight into that you wouldn't have considered. That it's something that just going back to like what is it that makes for a successful founder? Our history over the past 9 years is it's a pretty diverse set.
Let's get into that. What, in your personal experience, do you think makes for a successful founder?
To me, it's less about the specific tactics of, again, like pedigree or what they've done. I mean, of course, what they've done is certainly helpful, but I think in working with so many founders over the years, and some of this, it's hard to pick up from an initial, like an hour or 2 hour a cup of coffee at the Blue Bottle. But we certainly see this when we work with founders, especially through the accelerator. One is definitely speed. So, how quickly do they move? When they say they're going to do something, how accountable are they? There's a number of founders that we've seen that, they do something, they do it, they move fast, not recklessly, but they move quickly, they learn, they keep going. A lot of it is just about moving forward and building. So really kind of speed at which they execute. Second is what you might not consider is how open to feedback or how coachable they are. And so I think a lot of founders might think, I got to be like, asshole founder, thinks I'm great and doesn't listen to anybody.
I'm CEO, bitch.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to be like, I don't know.
That's funny. I had somebody on the podcast, I'm trying to remember who met with Mark Zuckerberg early on, and she was female.
Oh.
And he handed her the card, I'm CEO, bitch. And it was like,
oh no.
Wow. If there was anything indicative of the aughts here in Silicon Valley, it would probably be that moment.
Yeah.
It was Katarina Fake.
Oh my gosh.
Can you imagine? I mean, listen, Zuckerberg was a dipshit when he was a kid. He might still be, but he was a total dipshit when he was a kid. And I mean, talk about being clueless. Like,
and the thing is, like, those are what, of course, those are the outliers, and that's what's held up as being successful. But I feel like those types of founders and personalities, I mean, my humble opinion, they became successful despite that attitude, not because they were that way. And but unfortunately, because, the few that rose up, those are held up as like, this is what you got to be like. So everyone who thinks I got to be an asshole CEO and have all this arrogance and like act like I know everything when you really don't know that much.
So what you're saying is, if I could recap, it may correlate that some people are assholes who succeeded, but it may not be causation.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because
correlation, causation.
you know what's fascinating? I just realized I went to school for computer science and then quickly changed to psychology.
Ah.
What was it about psychology you found more appealing than computer science?
Well, I wish I had a nice answer. I think a lot of it was, I clearly was not going to be able to get into computer science at Berkeley with the grades I had for the undergraduate recs, especially when you drop a couple classes, so you're not going to get in. But I think, Cog Sci was interesting because it was so interdisciplinary. There was a combination of psych, neuropsych. There was an AI element before AI was a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, like a thing here. Linguistics, philosophy, and it was I think a relatively new major at the time. I think the equivalent at other schools, I don't know if it's called Cog Sci. I know at Stanford it's symbolic systems, but I liked it because actually the part I really liked about cognitive science was actually more the neuro aspect of it. But
what's going on in your brain when you make decisions?
Well, I think it was more medical. I think to me it was much more comforting to know if you have a lesion in your brain, that's what's causing this, aphasia, not, what could it have been about all the different theories on why you have certain, people suffer from certain mental disorders, which to me was
your
was
childhood.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you don't
It's
always
easier
know.
to know it's your brain and chemicals.
Yeah. But, I think with, it's interesting you switched sort of similar to me. I mean, without all the nuance, but yeah, I went from CS to Cog Sci, which is pretty close to psych. And I mean, there's definitely like, if you forget that at the end of the day with everything, with investing, founders, like everything behind it, they're humans. Right?
Yes.
So you cannot discount the human element.
Right.
With
Well, and interestingly,
these...
the two things you mentioned as being correlated with success for founders, the speed of execution and being open to feedback. And you also mentioned as part of the speed to execution, saying what you're going to do and doing what you say, which is accountability. Accountability and being open to feedback are on a cognitive basis would show maturity, self-awareness.
Yes.
And these are the things that I found can also be super helpful.
Yeah.
Like if you're trying to be a leader, to be aware of what the other person is experiencing. What should angel investors coming to a demo day at 500 Startups or anywhere else and evaluating companies, what should they look at? If your mom or cousin or brother, sister, whatever, said, I'm getting into angel investing and I got tickets to all the demo days. I'm going to Launch Accelerator, I'm going to 500, I'm going to Techstars, I'm going to Y Combinator, I'm going to Pair. What would you tell them to do? Just between us. And don't just ignore the 200,000
between us
people,
and everyone listening.
And the 200,000 people who are going to listen to this episode. What would you tell them to not invest in, to not fall for? And what would you tell them to focus on? Best advice.
I mean, I would definitely tell them that, I mean, my advice would be to use Demo Day as a chance to get a feel for like maybe what companies are interesting. But if you're talking about first-time angel investors, I certainly wouldn't advise like drop a check at Demo Day, which is like the fantasy. Like I got it, I raised my entire round at Demo Day. Everyone was throwing money at me. I'm like, that's not how it works. And if it is, then you shouldn't take their money because they don't know what they're doing. The thing is with angel investing, it's so early that you're not going to diligence a company for 5 months to decide on a $25K, $50K check. So, but what I would advise is certainly Demo Day is useful to kind of, it's really like good chance to network with other investors, kind of see what's maybe some sense of like what's relevant and see the companies. But of course, everybody looks good at Demo Day, right? Like everybody pitches fantastically.
Up and to the right, polished.
Very, very coincidentally, everyone is up and to the right, growing 20% month over month and all that stuff. So, but it really is like, there is some showmanship there, but I think it's still a good chance to see all the companies, what they're working on, and then definitely go approach the founders and try to get a meeting with them and have that time, not at Demo Day where it's crazy and kind of like a lot of noise, but have that time to spend one-on-one with them and to see how they interact with you, how they explain what they're doing, and some aspects about how they follow up and how they treat investors, I think says a lot about the founder, but maybe if they're with an accelerator, potentially it says something about like what they're being coached in terms of how to treat investors. And I think that's something to newer angels may not already know, like a kind of old, crotchety, been through war angels, like yourselves. Like, not that you're old, but
No, I am. I'm 48, and
yeah.
I'm not going to
That's
fall
young.
for nonsense. Like literally, when I
Exactly.
go to Y Combinator demo day, or when I did go, I haven't gone in a couple of years. When I would go, I would have people send me.
Mhm.
There was like the little app where you say you're interested in the company. So I picked like
The
5,
handshake
the
thing?
handshake thing.
Oh,
But
okay,
but I
yeah.
would just say I'm interested in the company,
Right.
and like literally, I would get replies back. How much would you like to invest? And then one time I got $100,000 note sent to me in DocuSign, and I went to my
Like, I
chief of
don't remember
staff,
agreeing with this.
and I was like, "What is this like company? Do they have like a corporate name that's different than their product name or something? You know, that happens sometimes. They're Acme Ventures, but they make a product called Pinterest or something, and you're just like." Okay, wait, I'm missing something here. And then I went to the founder and they said, no, I can't figure this out. We searched, we can't find this DBA doing business as. And I asked the founder, I was like, did we speak? I'm sorry, I can't remember. They say, no, but I read that your average check size is 100, so I thought I would get you the documents as quick as possible, help you along. And literally, Michael Siebold at Y Combinator told people that great investors, the opposite of what you're saying. Don't think about it. Shut up and send their money and move quickly. And don't think about returns. Just think about, this is literally what Michael Siebold said at their angel thing. It's like the worst advice I've ever heard. Just think about how great it will be to brag when you put a $250K check into a company. And I was just like, this is terrible advice. And I realized everything Y Combinator does is adversarial with investors. They consider them like, and I think it's because Paul Graham kind of had bad investors. And, when you have this top-down thing, they just look at like, this adversarial relationship. So I advise investors, like, don't go to Y Combinator demo day. If you do, just go to network. Yeah. And at Y Combinator demo day, don't feel any pressure, because literally the last 20 companies I met said they were closing their rounds. And I would set up a meeting and they'd say, well, we're closing before then. Oh. And I'd be like, well, I don't have time to meet with you in the next 2 weeks. I'm busy. I'm Jason Calacanis. Like, no offense, but like, I can't meet with you tomorrow. Do you know who I am? No. Yeah, but it was but I mean, literally, like I'm a busy guy.
Like logistically, yeah.
Logistically, I'll give you my assistant's email. We'll set up a time. Like that time might be 10 days from now. And they're like, oh, we're going to be closed by then. And I was like, I just read back, okay. And in every instance, they're not closed.
Interesting.
And in one instance, they said to me, oh, Jason, yeah, we're raising at a $10 million valuation, and we're raising $2 million, blah, 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 safe, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, who's leading the round? How much do you have closed? And they're like, well, we got like $1 million, and you're leading. I'm like, I'm leading? He's like, yeah, that's our dream, is you to lead. I was like, oh, that's very complimentary, but who set the prices for this? And they're like, well, we just came up with the $10 million price. I'm like, how did you come up with this price, $10 million? And they said something to the effect of like, well, my friend went last year and he got like a $9 million. So I wanted to beat his $9 million with a $10 million valuation. And I was like, really? Oh, that's unfortunate. And I said, you know what? If I was going to set the price on this, it would be $5 million. Or 4. And I don't even know if I would invest. I'd probably wait to see if you could actually keep these customers for more than 2 months. So somewhere between 5 months of hand wringing and 5 minutes at a demo day is the magic number for you of where you should invest. Yeah. What do you need to know? How many meetings should you have in your mind? If you were advising, again, your mom, your cousin, somebody you care about deeply, what would you advise them in terms of a process? Meetings, questions, diligence?
I know for me, like even early on within 500 where for again, like it was relatively new for me. Like it was really like one meeting tended to be enough. Like if I had a follow up, it might have been, I don't know, like it occasionally. But so I would say that definitely no more than 2. If you're going on to like 3 meetings, I don't really know why. It's like overkill.
For a 25K check or a 10K check or a 50K check.
Yeah, for a small check like that, it's not worth it. I mean, everyone has their different perspectives on the investing angle. And I do, on one hand, I do appreciate that when we teach our founders on how to fundraise, because many of them are pretty clueless about it, because it's not like they have done fundraising before, whereas we see it all the time, maybe albeit on the other side of the table, that there is some element of a sales process where you want to create urgency. Now, how much urgency you create to the point of like kind of stretching the truth, I don't know, but lying's not good. But I mean, I do appreciate like setting, some sort of timeline and all that stuff. But again, I think how you do it, how you execute on that is I don't know if I agree with that approach, but yeah, if it was a new angel investor and they're trying to figure out how do we, how many meetings do we have? Do we ask for their like 5-year plan and financials? No, like that doesn't exist. Like,
what's your
at this point.
favorite question to ask a founder when you're in that 1 hour meeting? You have like some go-to questions, a favorite, one that reveals a lot?
One question that seems to stump them, because it's not so much about like what's your market, like this and that and your metrics. It's like, why are you doing this? Like why are you starting this company? It kind of reveals it's a pretty open-ended question.
Yeah.
Some of them just say because the opportunity is great, and that doesn't really excite me. But if I can get a sense of like why is it that they're taking all this risk and capital probably and the stress to start a company, because as you know, starting a company is not for the faint of heart. Like, why are they doing that for this purpose? Like, and I know in some cases it's not going to be a beautiful, magical answer, because I don't know anyone who has this really, tug at the heartstrings, emotional story about starting like a SaaS company. I don't know. But I'd like to understand, like, why now? Like, why are you the team to do it?
Yeah.
Because some of the answers they reveal there, it's eye-opening. And the other aspect is trying to get a sense of, do they really understand who their customer is? I've had experiences where clearly the founders are maybe chasing a market, or they're kind of like, this is cool, like, let's try it out. But when I ask them questions about their customer, their target user, they seem to, there are a lot of gaps there. And so to me, if you don't really understand who you're serving, because ultimately as a founder, you're building a business to help serve a customer, you should care about them, then that's not a great signal. So
we'll wrap up with this. Well, I got two we're going to wrap up with. Number one, what an amazing portfolio, what an amazing career. Congratulations on that, all that. Now it's time for the pain and suffering. Tell me the company you passed on. That to this day, you feel that one, the one I saw it in your eye, the painful one, the one that got away.
Oh, this reminds me. I'll send it to you after this. I wrote this satire blog post of 8 things to do to appear like an important VC, and one of them was lamenting about the deals you passed on, because you can say, I passed on Uber, punch in the face, but it's sort of a humble brag, like I got a chance to look at
I was in the meeting. Right?
Yeah.
I was talking to Elon, and he offered me to be in Tesla, and I didn't do it.
Yeah,
true story.
He was a little rude, and he stared at me funny, so
I wasn't an angel investor at the time. I was giving him advice on VCs. And I was like, I don't angel invest. I'm investing in my own thing, whatever. But dumb idiot.
I know that I passed on Stitch Fix. But the thing is, I never actually got to meet Katrina because I was on maternity leave, and there were some wires crossed, but I'm like, it was so close. So Stitch Fix is a painful one.
The female founder unicorn, she's
amazing.
Amazing as a person. Like, when you hear her speak, you're just like, I wish I was that smart and considered. Yeah. She seems to me to be like the Xena warrior princess of the CEO crowd. Like, she is just a badass.
Yeah, she's who I want to be when I grow up.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, why has she not been on the show? Emmy award-winning producer Jackie, if you get her on the show, I will give $1,000 to you or the charity of your choice. Emmy award-winning Jackie, I'm putting $1,000 bounty on this founder.
It's done. Yeah. Stitch
Jackie, I'll give you $1,000 in cash, or give it to a charity of your choice if you get her in the next year. Jackie's looking at me like, oh my God.
That's going to be more challenging in the next 6 months.
No, next year. I give her, I always like the term paper. Like, give, because then maybe they'll cram in the last 2 or 3 weeks. But we got the date right now.
That's true. Then nothing will happen until the last.
I got an even better one.
Yeah.
Jackie, if you get the CEO of Stitch Fix on the podcast, I will give everybody on the company a work from home day. No pressure. That's 15 work from home. That's what everybody covets. The work from home day over Christmas. I will, even better. I will give everybody over the Christmas break a work from home day. So everybody at launch, tell Jackie, forget the $1,000. It's off the table. That's 15 days to work from home. Charles, a little peer pressure here, huh? Okay. It was super awesome to walk down the street with a Google logo, and now it's a disaster. People find out I'm an investor at Uber. They're like, why do you hate people? I'm like,
why do you hate people?
I'm like, hate people.
Why are you
and
such a
they're-
horrible person?
Well, no, I mean, it's fascinating to me. There are a million drivers driving for Uber and Lyft and everything. And they're like, they're getting paid $1 an hour. I'm like, do you really think people would be going to, like, they take one receipt that's like a mistake at Uber or Lyft where it's like something went wrong and they credited the person with $10 or, you know, and they're like, look, Uber made $4 on this ride and the driver made $2. And that was the only ride they had that hour. Therefore, they made $2 for that hour.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not how it works. You don't get paid for your 40 minutes of wait time when you're reading a book in this model. I am not advocating people make $2 an hour.
Yeah.
Nor are those people making $2 an hour, or they would not be on the app. They would take the
Right.
job working
Something else.
at the Apple Store or Target or Starbucks, which are looking for people to make $14 an hour. So how could those people drive
Right.
when they could work in the Apple Store for $12 or $14 an hour? It's obviously they're not doing that.
Yeah.
Is this going to end? Do we deserve this hate? What could we do better?
I mean, part of me thinks it's just it's natural in terms of the life cycle of tech. I mean, obviously tech is not a new thing. I mean, it's been around for a long time, but just kind of this phase of technology and startups and venture and just the way Silicon Valley is. To me, I'm a little bit, I've, again, lived here my whole life, so it's hard for me to tell. But, there's all this reaction of like, Silicon Valley is awful. San Francisco is awful. It's expensive. And yeah, it is expensive. And people want to go off, and live in somewhere else, in Portland or Seattle, which is probably going to turn into San Francisco because everyone's
no.
There's an exodus. But
The nature of cities.
yeah. I mean, I think it's inevitable just because, again, tech had such a ride and will probably continue to still have that for such a long time. And, anytime something is on that kind of up into the right path, there's always, there's it's not going to be perfect, right? And you probably see this, we've seen this with other industries. There was a period in, just anecdotally, like when I was, 20 years ago or however long when I was in undergrad, a lot of people wanted to go into finance and banking and, and then there was a downfall there and there was, it's not seen as this like warm, fuzzy, wonderful
people
place.
hated Wall Street.
Yeah. So
Big time.
yeah,
And people forget. People hated Microsoft. They were considered the Borg.
exactly.
They literally would call them... No, Microsoft was considered the Borg because they beat WordPerfect and Lotus 123 and put it into their operating system the same way Facebook is putting copying Snapchat.
Exactly.
Hey, listen, Christine, I know that you've been heads down working really hard to build the 500 Startups brand. And I know you had a rough patch there that you had to work through. But I just want to say, just investor to investor, I commend you on the effort. And I think you're awesome for having done that and not doing what I would have done, which is I would have just been out of there in 2 seconds. I would have like, enough. You did the hard work. You deserve that credit. And I think all the companies inside of 500 Startups probably really deserve to give you a high five for doing that hard work and not giving up. 500 is a great program. If you want to join, go to 500.co/startups. And what in portfolio? Intercom, Twilio, SendGrid, Credit Karma, TalkDesk, Revolution, GitLab, Bulapak. I don't know what that is.
Oh, Bukalapak. It's an Indonesian company. It's awesome.
Yeah. Grab and Canva. I'm trying to get the Canva CEO to speak at Launch Festival Sydney, but she's so busy. All right. Listen, this has been great. You can follow Christine _TSAI. And again, 500.co. Class is going on in apparently 20 different cities around the world. So apply to one of the programs. You got a favorite city in the family that you like to go to? Which program's doing the best? Has the most success? I'll make it easy for you because I know you don't want to pick one of your favorite 20 kids.
Yeah.
Which one has the objective best returns to date? Best portfolio of your 500?
of the funds.
That's just objective. I can find out by tweeting. So you could tell me, or I just tweet who's the best. Like one of them has the biggest unicorn. You can't do it.
Well, they're all different. They're different stages. I'm going to give the typical they're all great. But.
They're all great. All my kids are great, including the one who dropped out and is taking yoga classes in Costa Rica. They're great. They're going to be a yoga teacher. It's going to be awesome. Oh my God, I just said that and I just realized. Oh, yeah, sorry. Being a yoga teacher is an amazing thing to do.
Yes, it is.
I just read the story that yoga teaching is a scam.
Really? Oh.
So what they do is they get people who are into yoga, and one of these companies, was in the New York Times, they say, when are you going to do teacher training? You'd be a great teacher. You should do teacher training. You do teacher training? How about teacher training? And then they pay $1,500 to go to teacher training, and then $500 for one-on-one, and they spend a couple $1,000 on teacher training, and they never become a teacher.
Oh, no.
And it's just a way for the yoga studios to just take whatever,
Oh.
2% of their most,
Oof.
best people and say, go through training.
Interesting. Wow.
It's a tangent, but people like the podcast because of that. Thank you, Emmy Award-winning producer Jackie. Thank you to Sir Charles, our director. Thank you to our amazing partners for making Angels Season 3 possible. Go ahead and visit their websites and thank them on the Twitter. We'll see you all next time on Angel Podcast.